Although I emphasize again and again, if you do not put into practice, then there is no benefit. The Buddhist teaching is the teaching of enactment. So before you put it into practice, before it was an act of practice, it's important to distinguish right and wrong. So I need to know what is this and what do I have to do. So each individual needs the wisdom to find out which is right and wrong. So in Buddhism, if you have certain level of intelligence, then you can understand better. Or else, because of the lack of intelligence or barrier of intelligence, it takes longer for you to understand, or it is very difficult for you to understand. So having the intelligence is also the virtue that you get from your previous life. So in order to distinguish right and wrong, if you don't have the wisdom or intelligence, then it's very difficult to figure out. And also, even when you are doing the wrong practice, there are also many cases where you misunderstand that you are doing the right thing. So Buddhism, if you don't put into practice, but if you just think of it as a theory, restrict yourself to the thing that you only know, then that doesn't help you at all. So Buddhism is something that we put into practice, and the main target lies with the Buddhist teaching in your own practice. And also this samatha, if we do not try to cultivate it or practice ourselves, then it doesn't help at all. And also, if you don't do actual practice of samatha, but if you only talk about it verbally, or if you just try to spread it in a verbal manner, or if you have the wrong understanding and if you pass it in the wrong way, then there can be also very big error. This is something that affects you mentally. So those things which affects you mentally, if you don't do it accurately, those things that the things that affects our body, then we can take medication and we can do something and we can always stop it. But spiritually or mentally, if you don't try to portray it outside, then we don't know. And if it's something obvious in your appearance or any sources otherwise, then it's already in a serious state. So samatha is a practice that we try to put back the wrong things that's been going on in mentality. So if you do it well, then it's a very good benefit. But if you don't do it, then it's a great disturbance. So if you do it wrong, then there's also many side effects. So we have to do it carefully, and also we have to look at it in a very good manner. So last time we finished the paragraph, the top part, and so now we have to think about the 8 countermeasures. Well, if we classify the 8 countermeasures, they are as follows. First, there's faith or belief. Next, interest, tolerance, undisturbed mind, proper memory, awakeness. This I will explain later, but this is self-awareness is not like Buddha's wisdom, but you're not in a torpid state, or you're not being shaken by the distractions. So we say you are self-aware or awakened when you are away from those. So if you are in disturbance, but if you say, although I'm not sleeping right now, if I am encouraged by desire, and if my heart is going for external forces, that means my heart is not awakened but is actually dark. So if my happiness lies in attaining the high status in society, that is not awakened. Well, if my desire is also to play with money, that is also that you're affected by outer forces. Also, going out for drinking, that's also something that is dark. So if you only have the sense of distractions, and if your mind is going out for desiring for outer forces, and if your mind is also distracted by many things, then they all follow into the distraction and also the torpid state. The torpid state is a state where you have no thought, or if you doze off a lot. So if you're in the foolish state, even with your eyes open, then we call it the state of torpid or slumber. So if you are in those two states, then we call it dark states. And here the awakened state is the state which we are free from those two. So it's not the awakened state like Buddha. So if you don't have the slumber, or if you or even the agitation, then we also know that if you're angry, we also know that we are angry. The thing that I feel sad about is because we don't know what is the greediness. So we fear that we are not greedy, but when I see it's just full of greediness. But instead you say, well, I don't have so much desire. When we ask if you have already become Buddha, that's not so. So you just don't know where is the cut line for the greediness. If you don't know what is the cut line for the greediness, then since you're not aware, you don't even know if you have it or not, and you say you are not greedy, but that's also a lie. Greediness for everyone, before you become Buddha, everyone has up to a certain extent. If you have deep observation to the greediness, then even this is possible with our study. Buddha has already classified the greediness up to a certain extent in a very detailed. So if we are aware, then we can also know that those things just disappear and they still exist. But most of the time, even if we are doing a little asceticism practice, those things which are in deep, they are very strong. They're very strong. So especially in Korean society, if someone who is less greedy looks at it, then it's so dirty and it's so greedy that we cannot even bear to look at it anymore. The whole world is full of greediness. So even when you look at the city, they are still greedy about the thing, about planting trees, even in a small piece of land. But they still want to build some building there and try to earn money. So even the city is up to the extent where not even a frog or even mosquitoes can survive. So an architecture from Western country, when he came to Korea and saw the architecture in Seoul, he said the city is full of desire, greediness. Well, I agree to it. So we need to know what is foolishness and also greediness. Well, we are not really able to classify them. We do many things which are really foolish and goes backwards, and even while doing so, we don't know if you are doing foolish things. Why? Because we don't have the clear sense of understanding, or we do not have the parameter to clearly identify which is right and wrong. So if you don't know what is wrong and what is right, that means we are not aware what is wrong and right. So it's bound that we have to keep studying. There is no other way. Even those people who come to the monastery for 30, 40, 50, 70 years, even those people who come here for a long time, there is still no use. It doesn't help them at all. And even for the practitioners, there is no benefit. How can it help? And a lot of people suffer from this state. So that's why so sometimes I wonder if I should stay here for longer, because no matter how much I teach, it doesn't really help anyone. And also, if I keep teaching, there are also some people that they just take it for they just are satisfied just for the sake of listening. So it's very complicated. When you have the thinking and also the agitation, you can also imply or apply the counter methods, or you can also get rid of unnecessary methods. Here they are talking about the 8 things, and if we explain one by one, the fate here is in the practice for the concentration. You have to know what are the benefits, and you practice it with happiness and with gladness. So when we do samatha or offering, or when we practice tolerance, or when we obey the restrictions, if you say it is too much for us to bear, then we cannot do it. Basically, if you feel that offering the practice of offering is difficult, then there's nothing for that person to do, whether it's a repentance or anything else. So you have to try your best with offering and get rid of your greediness. Keeping your greediness, and if you feel the offering is too much for you, then it's difficult. So and no matter whatever practice you do, it doesn't work because your greediness doesn't get out. And even the practice, even if you are able to concentrate, because of the greediness, it only becomes like an attachment of the greediness. It's a very scary thing. So first, what is the faith? You need to have a confirmation that you will be able to reach to nirvana, that you will be able to become like Buddha. So even if it's not possible in this life, next life or next life, there will come a time when I'll be able to do it. And when I become like Buddha, the suffering and also the things that are cumbersome, they will also disappear. You need to have a great faith for this. Or at the time of my death, I'll be very scared. Or if by listening to Buddha and with cultivation of samatha and vipassana, even in front of death, my heart will be still and the fear for death will disappear, and I'll be able to have this kind of happiness. Why is it so? Everyone who has done that, they say it's all possible. And also there are a lot of people who have shown us that that at the time of their death. While studying, amongst the minds that you need to have, well, if you feel that this kind of practice helps you relax your mind, well, you won't be able to go very far with that kind of mindset. So, through this practice, slowly you have to get rid of your greediness and also the distortion. And also, if you are able to get rid of the torpid state, then you can feel the relaxed state and also the happiness of nirvana. Well, we are not talking about that kind of thing, but you need to have faith, or you need to have the trust that they will come a nirvana if you follow those practice. Without the kind of belief, then even if you try to do it, then it doesn't really help you much. And also, there is not much meaning to it. So when we say we are practicing or we are doing our asceticism practice with mantra, recitation of mantra, then I should not even waste a moment of it. And also, this is something that in my life, no matter whatever is given to me, it cannot be compared to the happiness of nirvana. That's 1 in billion or millions. They would come to me. We have to know that. So, even exercise. After exercise, we know that we become healthy, and because of that, we do not miss our exercise. Then only we keep on doing our exercise too. Or else it's not very profitable. This will naturally raise interest for the practice. While living, what is interest? Samatha and Vipassana, and also the 6 paramitas practice. From them, again, from many different diverse aspects, you need to have more interest. Even the sutras and Vinayanas, you need to try to read more, and it's very important to expand your interest. And also those people who live their life in that way, they have become, they have gained certain happiness, and you also need to check on that. And so, if you don't have that kind of interest, then you will be distancing yourself from the interest. And if you distance yourself from the interest, then you will also lose your interest. Well, when people claim to do their practice, well, it's the same for those people who usually go around saying they are doing their practice. Well, about 3 years, I'm going to learn how to how to decorate with flowers. Well, what does that benefit you? When I went to this monastery, they were doing this. Because they don't study, they try to encourage people with some tea manners or flower decoration, but it doesn't help you with your practice. Well, in fact, because of your brewing tea, you eat so many so weird clothes and also go to parlor and spend money. It doesn't help at all. You put too much starch on it, on the clothes, and also you're just getting rid of your own luck and your virtue. So when we say we meditate, we have to keep our interest to that. You should not have interest for the conditions, such as when I went here, the cushions were very good to sit, and the environment was very good. And when I sat, my hair was very itchy, so I cut my hair short. So even those things. normally you are able to figure out if the person is really doing the meditation or not just by looking at them. Because the person who has interest and really tries to do it, the behavior and also the appearance becomes very simple. Well, although it's not 100% correct, we can know that the person is willing to sit anywhere. Even in the car, the person can sit and meditate for a short period of time. When we say we are going for some pilgrimage, some people wear the leggings and with something that's so tight you cannot even prostrate properly. And then we are also able to know that the person doesn't have much interest in those things. Well, to someone, to those interested, there's also an opportunity. Well, I heard the saying that if you knock, it will open. I heard this maybe something like Jesus said, but if you're not interested, then how can you find out? But normally your husbands are not even interested. They're only angry that their wives are coming back home late from monastery, and they come and they just go around in front of the monastery, and they're not interested. Even on the Buddha's birthday, they think it's hot, and so they'll rather go back home to their AC. That's because they're not interested. So even when practicing samatha, you need those kind of interest. Even the rosary, those people who study really, we can also know that the person is studying or not just by looking at your rosary. You're not looking at how worn out it is, but those people who actually concentrate with your rosary, they know if they're comfortable or uncomfortable with that. So they already have their interest to their tool, and the tool is already sticking to their body. We can know that easily. And looking at them, we can also figure out that the person is actually doing his or her practice properly. Just because you come to monastery, only on that day you wear something like this huge, and on your hand you also have a rosary around your wrist. It's just you don't actually put into your practice, but you think of it just like your good luck for charm. Tibetans, you can easily know that they're actually doing their mantra hard. They always have it with them. It's not only when they work, they just have it around their neck, but normally they always have this with them. And if they don't have the rosary, then just through the observation meditation, or they just recite the mantra. So when you see their hands are moving. Even to a simple rosary, they are so interested. Even you, when we say we are meditating through an observation, normally those people who actually does their meditation, they require a Buddha statue. Why is it so? Because you need to concentrate first. So having interest to those areas, in these areas, it speeds up your meditation. You also have to develop the mind of tolerance. So naturally, when you are sitting down, if I say, after 5 minutes, my legs start hurting, how should I sit? And if I ask you to sit on the chairs, you also have different complaints. Where the funny thing is, if you are sitting on the chair, since you are half standing up half, you want to go somewhere fast. So it's very funny. If you're sitting on the chair,
서양 사람들 다리가 아프니까 의자에 앉아서 하라고 그러면 이거 뭐 의자에 앉아서 빨리 어떻게 일어서서 가고 싶고 간단 말이에요. 일어서려고 마음을 먹었는데
they said you have to sit with your legs
일어설 마음이 적어지는데 반쯤 일어섰으니까 그냥 살짝 일어서면 가잖아.
tightened. So if you're sitting on the chair, you feel like you want to go somewhere, so you're not able to sit properly. So if your legs hurt, well, unless until you have a serious problem with your leg, just something like simple mild or easy, you just have to tolerate it. Before in Heinza, one of the old monk, he had cold. So and since his mucus was he had runny nose, and so when someone commented on it, he said it's my karma dropping. Where such tolerance, you need that actually, and even when we are doing farming, you know the song 칠갑산, right? I hope he comes and sings the song again. Where I heard that he's a man from Yeosu.
술을 많이 먹어서 그런가?
You remember the song? Even just to cultivate or harvest a simple bean, whole of your clothes it gets wet, and also it's very difficult to cultivate the beans. You have to do it when it's really hot. The rice paddy, they have waters, so it's actually a little cooler, but the farm where you harvest the beans is very hot because it's very dry. You have to, it needs a lot of manpower to do it, and nowadays you also have to use pesticide. Also, the beans, after you cut them off, they're so stiff. So next time when you actually try to do something on the field, because it pokes you, so you have to get rid of them. It makes the work very hard, and it takes a lot of manpower to get the beans. And also to make tofu, you also have to soak the beans and then grind them and make them into tofu. And the process it takes to eat it, it takes about 30 stages. So it's more difficult than doing the meditation actually. Although people say that meditation is difficult, I think it's actually easier than harvesting beans if we only do it in the proper way. Whereas someone said before that since I don't want to live in a city, maybe I should go to the farming. If you want to do something like that, if you think of it easy, or if you underestimate it, then you are bound to fall. If you want to do meditation because you have a lot of time, well, if you think since you have nothing better to do, then you're not going to succeed. You have to feel that I find it necessary that I do the meditation. Where someone said, I have a lot of time, maybe I should go somewhere. maybe I think I should come to monastery to play. And I said, don't come. I felt bad about it. Just because you have time, if you want to come here and play, then I go through difficult time. So I told him not to come.
농사 짓는 것이요. 그 내가 얘기했지만 농사 짓는 것이 어린이집
But farming is more difficult than getting the certificate to for the kindergarten.
그 농사를 하나도 몰랐거든. 근데
The
농사를 짓는다니까 열심히 하려고 하는
the Lotus kindergarten, the head teacher, she didn't know anything about the agriculture, and when she started doing it, she went through so many failures. Sometimes I saw her watering in the middle of the day. You should not give water in the middle of the day. If you do so, then the trees, because of the water, the leaves, the breathing points, they get blocks. You have to give it at the time after sunset or before sunrise. And also, if you give too cold water, then they are actually trying to raise their temperature. And if you give too cold water all of a sudden, then the water also just they also lose strength. So you also need to know how to give water. If the water is with the roots, or if it's just in the top of the soil. But if you don't give the water in abundance, then also they become thirsty, so they can also die. So what is it like? In the zoo, if you, it's almost like you're giving the lion grass in the zoo. So even the agriculture is very difficult. So actually, even when you do the meditation, you require tolerance. Looking at the state, you also need to know the space and time, and also your motivation. When they are weakened, you have to try your best to overcome them. You need the strength. So even when you are doing a small farming, you need time and tolerance and waiting. But this is actually a work that you're trying to free yourself from samsara. But if you don't have the tolerance, then samatha is impossible. It won't work. The trust, interest, tolerance, and also the undisciplined, they are actually the countermeasure for the laziness. This is almost like we have so many difficulties, like when we want to meditate, we have back problem, and you give so many different excuses not to do your study. Well, such as like when I went to a doctor said I should not sit in the lotus position because it causes my back to hurt. So then you have to overcome that and say, should I even kneel to do it? Or you have to come up with different countermeasures to do it. But if you say, I'm not going to do it until my back gets better, where there's no time, opportunity for you because you're already old. Well, even you, after you age, is not very interesting, isn't it? There's nothing good about it. Even the eyes, and, well, when you are old, Well, even the adhesive that's all. If you try to glue it, since the adhesive, the glue is not strong, they even take off. And if you're old, then even your adhesive power to money, it also weakens, and they also starts falling off. And if you want to hold on to it, then in the end, actually they try to drag you, so it's not easy to hold on to them or be away from them. So some people who has problem with the Alzheimer, then even when you tell them that you are going to clean it, they don't get up.
깔고 앉았다 눌렀다 깔고 앉았다 눌렀다 계속 그러니까 나중엔 돈이 떡이 돼가지고 할머니를 유인해가지고 저 딴 데로 모셔놓고서 이제 방 청소를 해달라고 해보니까 안에 돈이 한 300만 원.
So there are also sometimes when there are some people who are sitting on the money with Alzheimer, but normally they sit on the money, but
새 돈을 갖다 줬는데 또 깔고 앉아가지고 이제 오줌을 잘금잘금 싸놓으면 그게 한 2, 3년 되면 또 딱딱해지고 또 한 덩어리가.
Where even the money becomes like just a lump. So if the obstacle of laziness arises, then in order to overcome them, you also need tolerance. But tolerance is not the only thing required. And some people, when we ask them to practice samatha, they just put faith and they sit for like 8 hours a day. And next time, after few days, whenever they just see the cushion, they have headache. But this is about habits, so you have to gradually build up the habit. If you think that this is okay for you, then you have to go one step further and one step further. It's the same with the prayer. Even if you want to do 1,000 days prayer, well, even if you are able to complete it, next time you never want to do it again. So even the prayer, you just do it for a week, and if you feel light and good about it, then why don't you try for next 10 days? Well, from the monastery that I became a monk, they had this 1,000 days prayer. And one of the monk there, he didn't want to pray 1,000 days prayer, so he became back the lay person again. I know him very well. We used to go for a walk together. Because of the blind faith, in the morning, early morning, we would have the prayer every day before we eat breakfast. And the throat he also had some throat problem when he was doing his prayer, and everyone thought he was also doing very hard. If you just sit like 8 hours a day, and sometimes when you have more blind faith, then you also prostrate about like 1,000 times, and then afterwards your body is not able to take it. Even when you're trying to hit the stick and think you're not able to do it. When you hear it from outside, it's almost like a dog drowning in the water. You should not prostrate or meditate or even pray in that way. If your heart feels lazy, then again you have to encourage your heart. When you are able to reach to the place where the agony stops, it's how gradually big. Even Buddha reached there and a lot of other saints. I should also try my best to cultivate the same. And so same, even for 20, you just have to do it for like 20 minutes, and then And if it's good, then again tomorrow 20 days and 20 days. And after doing about 100 days, 20 days is good for you to sit down and relax also. So then you try 30 minutes and 35 minutes. It should happen so.
그래서 이 경안이라는 것은
So this on this of mind, it is this actual word refers to the light and also comfortable feeling. So do not try to do something that's burdening for you. Of course, it's not okay if it's too comfortable, but within the limit that you are able to do, you have to do up to this much and then continue a little more and a little more. So when you do your meditation, if you continue making things that's complicated for you, that's also not okay. If you keep making things that's difficult for you, then you don't feel light. It's not good for you too.
가볍지 않단 말이야. 그래서 이거는 이제
So these four things
게으른 것을 갖다가
stops you from being lazy. They are the ways to get over laziness. So there's no special method as such. We just have to overcome them like that. It's the same for us studying, even in our mundane world. Even studying in our mundane world, we need to have a goal. And well, even like
총장 같은 경우는
the UN Ban Ki-moon, he also wanted to study in international. He also wanted to work in international grounds, so he studied English very hard. And since he had a goal, he achieved what he wanted.
세속적인 일이지만
So
그러니까 명상을
the meditation and also some one-time vipassana, while you do that, you have to know the contents in detail and you have to do one by one. And only if you remember them one by one, when you have the sense of laziness, you are able to have a counter method for it.
아 이건 이래서는 안 되지 하고 딱 생각이 나온단 말이야.
You understand?
알겠죠?
The fifth proper memory is the counter method or countermeasure about neglecting of getting the proper object of your practice. Well, if you have decided to concentrate to Konsenbosal Avalokitesvara, then since she is the resting point of your heart, you should never forget. And if you have started off with Om Mani Padme Hum, then with your concentration, the resting place of your heart is Om Mani Padme Hum. So you should also not forget that. So when you talk about Hwadu, if you forget about where the object of your Hwadu was, what kind of problem arises? Well, whether it's Hwadu or mantra or
하는데 그 마음에 소위친 화두나 연불이
the concentration point of your heart, while you recite Kwanseum-Bosal, you forget about it.
잊어버려.
And you become very comfortable. And also, when you stop the speech, you should be able to concentrate and forget about what you are reciting. But if you forget,
기억하는 것을 갖다
remembering the place where you were actually trying to hold on to, you forget them and you go into your torpy state, which is not okay.
지금 내가 이렇게 지금 얘기하는 게
When I speak about this, do you have some interest? Are you interested?
또 우리가 이를테면
Also, even when we pray, only if you only by sound, when we pray like this, along with the word, you have to pray that I pray all my offerings to all different lives, and also to Shakyamuni, who is a very compassionate parent. You should not forget to the being that you are praying. While praying, if you have some other different thoughts, or if you have no thoughts, it's just by the sound, if you pray like this. Well, if we listen to your sound, we know what you are doing. Oh, is my husband going to come early today? That means you have actually forgotten the object of your praying or object of your practice. What time is my meeting? Since it's 12, I have to leave this place at 11:30, and well, if you do that, you have actually forgotten the object of your praying. That's almost like you have gone for a tour, and you're going through a very complex tour route, and you have forgotten or you have lost your guide. So even when you practice your samatha, not forgetting is very important. When you go deep into the samatha until the 7th stage, it's very important to know what is if you're doing right or if you're not doing it right. And you also need to remember what is doing it right and what is not doing it right. And if you are doing something, then you also need to realize yourself that you are actually doing it right. If you don't know, then you cannot be free from the torpy state or your slumber. Where before I taught someone how to do the meditation, and the person said, well, I think my meditation is very good nowadays. And I asked him, how is it possible? And he said, well, when I sit down, I can remember all the good memories about past. Well, since if you're sitting down and if you remember every good things, and well, if you do that, then the study cannot be done in a proper way. The proper memory is if you forget who is object of your practice, and if you also forget the method. For example, if you are in a confused mind with sleepiness, well, it's very peaceful. You don't hear anything, and you're just comfortable. Where there are some people who come and tell me, why are you sitting down like that? You can just sleep comfortably, lie down. Why are you sitting down? You should never miss it. You need to know what is wrong right now, and because of what you are actually going through a difficult time, you need to know that. If you don't know, well, even if you know very well, you are easily cheated. That's why the teacher has to check again and again. If the teacher doesn't check again and again, then you are also being fooled. The sixth realization is the counter method for the slumber, the torpy state of sleepiness, or the agitation. If your mind is sinking down, then you need to wake it up. The agitation, you need to you need to try to suppress your mind, which is already up in the air. Through the continuous practice, you need to gain the spiritual peacefulness, and also you can also increase the level of your practice. The slumber or torpy state is the state where you are feeling sleepy, and the agitation is something that I cannot do it. How can I do it? It's something like your heart is just broken down. Well, I need to, if you're thinking like I need to take care of my kids and also the meditation, I cannot do it because it's so noisy. If you think of those, and also the sense of disturbances that you've been facing so far, they occur repeatedly, then you cannot concentrate easily. Although you have made a point of your concentration, if you cannot concentrate well and if your mind keeps moving, or if your mind is fluctuated again and again between the slumber and agitation, then what happens? When you go to the agitation, you feel that, well, I cannot do something like this. At times like this, you need to encourage your heart again and again. Well, in the Lotus Sutra, there is a metaphor to this. When he was leading the merchants, when they said they cannot walk any further because because the leg hurts, then he modified a castle and made them rest there. There's water and everything, but then they were just satisfied and happy at the castle, so they won't want to go anymore. So since it's a castle that's been modified, he got rid of it and he built another good castle and tried to take them. So if our mind just feels satisfied at a place or for something, then we need to encourage that there's something better there. There's a utopia that's better. And if you do that, then they will get up and they would move your way. So in our life, the life that we live, since we are becoming a little more lucky in our world, we don't have difficulty with food and also accommodation and also sickness and transportation. So we get obsessed to it and we don't try to study because this seems better. And so the gods in heaven, they don't even think of studying because it's already so great. They think of it as utopia, and when their luck diminishes, then they just fall down from it. Those people with money and authority right now, they feel it's already good enough, so they don't try to escape from it or get rid of it, so they don't do anything. So the cold and hunger actually tries to encourage you to study better. So if you start eating and living in comfort, then you don't actually try to study. But society like America, those people who already in America, Buddhism, they started approaching Buddhism because they realize that eating well and living in comfort does not get rid of your agony. 8 and 9 stage is staying in the concentrated state for long. So what is the 8th here?
이제 혼자서 여부를 쉬지 말고 크게 한번 해보시오. 이제 그 자각이라는 것과
So when we are aware of ourselves and also when we have the slumber and also the agitation, we need to get rid of what is unnecessary.
이 앞에 자각이라는 게 빠졌네, 그죠?
what's the explanation for the self-awareness missed out? Well, we explained before.
그 다음에 이제 침몰과 도구에 대응을 적용하는 것, 그 다음에 불필요한 대응법을 버리는 것이 있는데, 그러니까 이제 침몰과 도구.
So when does the slumber and the agitation keeps rising? Until when? Until the ninth stage of the bodhisattva. Until seventh, the slumber and agitation also arises slightly. But until then, anyhow, you have to continue to put efforts to get rid of it. You need to realize. You need to be aware, and also you need to be aware what is slumber and what is agitation. You need to know it soon and fast. And then what's next? You need to get rid of unnecessary countermethods, which is at the 8th and the 9th stage of bodhisattva. Same as the Hwadu or reciting mantra, it's same. They can happen naturally, and even you don't have the slumber, and there's also no sense of distraction. So that too. Even if you move around like this, it comes to you naturally. You can do it naturally. And also, you can do it naturally until you sleep. And even if you don't want to do it, you're just doing it automatically. You realize that you're doing it. So on the 8th and 9th stage, it's something like that. At that stage, there is no need to have a countermeasure because you don't have to slumber or agitation anymore because it doesn't exist. So your body and mind is already in a light and pleasant state. And if you are already in the state, then there's no need for you to have a countermeasure, right? Then at the time, it's almost like when you have a sickness. Before we have to say, oh, that person has a very serious inflammation and also needs a lot of antibiotics and fever. Well, at that time, even the inflammations are gone and there's no fever anymore. But since we had to fight against it, we have become weak, and so doctor tells you to go home and eat well. At the time, you don't need meditation or you don't need medication, and also doctor. If you just leave it so, you get back naturally. So at 8th and 9th stage, then the things that you have done so far, all these countermethods, you can just let them go. Now it's only if you recite Kansenbosal, the recitation becomes natural. So there's no need for you to try to stop the slumber. Where if you put efforts to stop it, where it actually does disturb you because it just happens naturally, automatically. Then when you're in this stage, it doesn't take long before you enter into the first stage of dhyana. When you're at the first stage of dhyana, then you go to the first initial stage of bodhisattva. And when you're at the initial stage of bodhisattva, then you also remember about your past due to the memory. And also that happens just because of samatha. It's not that looking at the consequence, you just estimate what happened before, but you also go through the state where the scene actually comes to you in the body form. So 8th and 9th stage is remaining where we have the long concentration.
오랫동안 머무는 상태죠.
When this state is formed, other countermeasures actually they work as harm. So at this time, you just let them go.
이때가 되면 사실상은 이 정도가 되면
When you're at this stage, actually the say eat or do fasting or all these things, they don't help at all. Just naturally every day, just like daily life, if you haven't eaten, if you're not eating because of your mantra for 3 to 4 days, that's still okay because you're not affected by it.
에너지가 이게 소모되는 것이 대부분이 우리 에너지 소모되는 것은 거의
The energy of our everyday and our everyday energy is mostly spent because of our agony. So at the state of samatha, if you just have a very basic energy, then that's also okay. Very minimal energy, that's also fine. You understand?
좀 이해되시죠?
In samatha practice, starting from the posture, even to the content of your concentration of your heart, and also the method, the counter method when you're not able to concentrate well. Well, even online, the Kambashila's explanations are given in detail, so you have to study in detail and you have to follow. Therefore, at this state, try to avoid the counter method, but try to maintain the state or condition as it is. So just maintain it. And what happens when you're at the first stage of dhyana? So far, you just have been able to concentrate. And so the body and also the mind feels light, and there's no agony. And when you concentrate, you can see that your mind is going to one, being portrayed as one, but you're not able to attain first stage of dhyana. Why? Because sometimes it becomes a little weak. So your mind actually goes on one time, like one line, but it stops in between. It's almost like, in olden times when you try to organize a thread. We make the thread and we put it on the wheel and we turn it so that we make it into one lump. And we need to do that well, then only the thread is very good. But the thread doesn't really break off well, but this is just an example where the thread doesn't get cut. But when there is too much cotton or too less cotton, then there is a little difference, and something like that still exists. Well, if you are not very expert, you're not an expert, well, the speed of your finger pressing it and also turning the other hand, they have to also work as one. And also when you turn it this side, you should not do it too soon. You have to do it slowly. And also the tip of the thread.
이 명가락이 있단 말이에요. 물레 가락 아시죠? 이거 길다랗게 돌아가는 거. 가락 끝에다 이걸 딱
you have to put the tip of the thread to the tip of the machine, and so when you turn it, it becomes a real thread as it is being turned.
또 주르륵 감고 또 주르륵 감고 그거 도는 소리가 물레야 돌아라 돌아라 이거 별 소리도 안 나. 예? 예. 그러니까. 시리다가 그냥 뭉떡 나갔다가.
If you are not used to it, then sometimes it becomes very thick and sometimes it becomes very, very thin and gets cut off. Well, I give so many diverse explanations. So I thought about like what should I use as a metaphor to explain this, and I thought maybe this would work as a good example. Well, until the seventh stage, if you try to do it, then they cut off. Well, because of the agony, the thread cuts off, and so you have to get them together and do it. And sometimes the lump is too great, so you have to do it once again. And before that, although you put it on the wheel, just like a beginner, well, you are actually a beginner because it breaks up and you put it again. So after 7 to 8 stage, it doesn't break up, but it's continuous.
이렇게 이제 한단 말이야. 예? 나는 속가에 우리 어머님이 내가 요 말고 그 남의 모시를 가지고 옷을 내가 하나를 해 입었는데 왜냐면
I use name cotton to make a cloth for myself, where there's a special property during the offering in the summer. My mother would make a cloth and give us 2 or 3 sons. Well, I had one that my mother gave to me a long time ago, but well, it's worn out, so I threw it away. So that's why I know about how to make this dress.
도트말이죠? 이 앞에 요 팔랑개비처럼 생긴 요렇게 가운데다가 도트말이에다가 그따 시무대 그 잉여대라 그러지. 뱃대 또는 잉여대. 그걸 갖다가 딱 안에다가 넣고서 이제 한 바퀴 돌리고 그걸 갖다 이제 그대로 배 다 메고 나면 원래 그 배 메는데 그게 그 보디가 있거든. 보디 있죠, 그죠? 보통 그
Well, to make clothes, you need to go through many different procedures. So from the beginning, it starts off, and there are also different ways to count. And
배틀에다 얹어 놓고서 이제 이쪽에서 이제 북 있죠, 북실에다가 시줄 이거 날줄 이거 넣고서 탁 하나 넣고서 이 발목.
So in the machine that makes the clothes, you put one thread and you have to press once, and then. And those people who are very good at weaving, they have this kind of sound, automatic sound. In olden times, you also have to use your hand. And that later became the weaving machine, weaving factory in Daegu. So just like you're making a thread, the thread, it doesn't break up, and also it is very uniform.
그렇게 나간단 말이야. 나가고 그래서 이제 실을 갖다가 명 잡는다 그랬죠. 명 잡는가, 물레가 잘 돌아가는가. 아이고 물레가락이 부러졌네. 그렇게 한단 말이야. 근데 이제 사마타가 딱 그 그룹에서
if samatha is continued,
명 잤을 때 지속이 돼서 끝무렵이 어떻게 되겠어?
well, if just like making the thread, if goes one full, even it's completed, it breaks off, it ends. So when the samatha ends, and when you go into the first stage of dhyana, then agony feels
느껴지느냐면 그냥
like a water that's put in the porcelain.
담아가다가
Or maybe this is better. When I was little, there was a time I went through a very difficult time when I went for my mother. When my mother asked me to do something, my mother asked me to buy some petrol, and I didn't want to do the chores that she asked me to do. So I have to hug the bottle of petrol, but I didn't hug it. But I was just holding it, and the bottle broke off by the rock. And so when I took it to my mother actually left because there was no petrol there anymore. And when the agony breaks off, it's just like that. So the bottle gets empty, and you can see that the property of the mind is actually empty. When you're at this borderline, then you pass the first stage of dhyana, and your actual study, the real study actually starts, and your acts of bodhisattva starts off from there. If you start practicing samatha from your age, it works very well. And also, what's your sister's name? It will be easier than her. You have very good habits, and so your holiday, when you are on holiday, you come here to listen to teaching. Even if other children, they just come here, but they don't listen to the teaching and they go off. So if they have some relation, then even if it's children, they just come for the teaching. And it also acts as a very good thing for later life. Those people who are not actually to those people who doesn't really have relations, then it doesn't really stays. After you learn from me, you should also teach your children. Don't give them food or money. If you don't study, I will not give you food. And if they don't study, then prepare something that they like the best and don't give it to them. I want you to be happy. That's why I'm asking you to study and also do the meditation. But when you do that, where the study of our mundane life is something we just do to earn the bread, so it doesn't help at all. But when you teach your children how to do the meditation and what is the right spirit, then later it really helps the children greatly. But it seems like you don't teach kids how to do that. Later, when you have something that's causing you headache, and when you have some problems, you cannot really do anything. There are not many methods. Likewise, whatever you desire, you have to keep your mind there. Once again, whether it's Hwadu or whether it is a mantra or whether it is a meditation in observation, you have to keep your concentration there, and you have to continue having the concentration to become that. And although you say it is not easy, well, of course it's not easy. It's not possible. And also the mind, we have to let it go wherever it wants to be, or go or do whatever it wants. It has lived its life in slumber or agitation, and also in freedom. So when once you try to hold it, it does a lot of, it gives a lot of great it says it doesn't feel well, sick, or have to earn money, or busy. My beloved child is here. I have to go to a hair salon. So many different excuses will arise. There is no one who dies without any excuse.
낙양산 심리하에 그렇잖아 그죠? 높고 낮은 전무드마 영웅 호거리 몇몇이냐 니가 누구냐 우리네 인생은 한 번 가면 저 모양이 되는구나 에라말로
In the Mount Nagang, there is no grave that doesn't have excuse. You can give so many different and excellent excuses, because I'm woman, because I'm a man, because I'm old, because I am busy, and because of headaches, because I drank. Since I am old, I cannot think anymore. So many different excuses for not being able to do it, and the whole life ends in excuse. I wish to get rid of all the excuses that exist in this world. And while keeping it close, you have to analyze the mind. If you are concentrating well to the object, or if you are falling into if you are sinking down, you have to observe well. Before I heard that there is abroad there was someone who was teaching about Hwadusan, and they were teaching in this manner. Show me your palm, and while hitting, how does it feel like? If it hurts, well, you're past the first stage. It has taken me for shock. How can your agony disappear in that manner? To check if it's going well or not, well, you can just know it. How? While you are sitting, if your mind is revolving around somewhere else, to different mountains, well, that's the end of it. It's not working. Although it's you're comfortable, and if you're not thinking anything, if you're just sitting in comfort, and if you're just sitting in comfort, and if the object of your meditation or concentration has disappeared, that means you're in slumber. It's not working. Before, someone also said about the meditation I thought, when I asked if you're doing well, and the person said the thing that you taught me is difficult, but someone else taught me the meditation. Like, sit, this universe is one with me, and I'm one with the universe. I have the whole universe in my mind, in my heart. That monk asked me to sit this way, and I asked him to bring the monk. And the person said, since I sit below the tree and sit like that, it was very great. And so I asked the person, do you think your agony will disappear in that manner? So even now, when you recite 관세음보살, 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 you just have to see if you are having the good concentration. If you have different thoughts, then it's all wrong. You have to see if the concentration is there. There's no need even to think that it used to be better or if it's going well, but you just have to see the present if it's going well. Then the different thoughts and even the slumber will start to disappear. Then you're actually going through the right path. Don't even think about how you breathe and all. When you recite the mantra, there is no need to control your breathing or breath. It will just happen naturally. And even when you're practicing samatha, there is no need to control your breath. If your breathing or your breath will just relax automatically if you get used to it. But those Brahmins in India, I heard that they try to delay their breathing. So inhale 10 seconds, exhale 10 seconds. And if it takes long time, after a long time, then they do like 30 seconds. So just in a minute they just breathe one time. So because of level of oxygen in their brain, I don't think they're very clear in their mind. And if you continue doing that, then do you know what happens? Your brain cell, it almost it stops, and your consciousness will become unclear. And if you don't eat, and if you actually do more practice, well, imagine what happens. Well, Buddha has done that too, and Buddha said that something useless, it will only ruin the human being. And Buddha said you should never do that. Buddha said you should not even do fasting. You have to eat until you are able to maintain your body. And also, Buddha said no to eating raw vegetables only. So many different things that many different people did. You just follow, and through that, if you believe that you are a great person because you do so many different things, it's just that you are trying to grow disciples. You should not do that. You have to do something that is normal and usual, but do not eat too much and do not eat too less. So when Buddha spoke about them, Buddha make sure that you should not do too extreme things. I'm telling you about these things in a manner that's easy for you to understand, but in reality they are very important. You have to remember well. You have to study well if you're thinking or if you're concentrating to the object, and also you have to check if your mind is being controlled by external environments. You have to check in detail. If you just study that, if you are concentrating to what you intended to study, well, you can know it very easily. If that's not going on, then that means you have the agitation and slumber. And if you have the slumber and agitation, that means your practice is not going well. So you have to continue and put your efforts until it becomes your habit. So sit at home in the morning, and if you recite 1000 hands and eyes, etc., well, that's also the same. You have to concentrate and you have to continue. By starting off like that, and if you only pass 5th and 6th stage, although you're not at 7th, 8th, 9th stage, if you're about 5, 6, 7th, then that person's face and sight and also speeches, they also change. And if they are on, and also if they face problems in life, those big things of course they're betrayed by it, but those more minute things they will just let them go, because if you concentrate, they're just the borderline of agony or karma that's light, so they will not strike you hard. If samatha practice develops, the practitioner can freely choose the comfortable and appropriate practice, and then have to concentrate on the object, and have to make sure that mind doesn't sink down or gets to external forces. You have to keep your motivation to achieving clear samadhi. So when you're reciting like things like Om Mani Padme Hum, your mind should not be influenced by others and gets unclear. The motivation lies in making one motivation, and only if you have one motivation, then it will come to a point where the borderline disappears. You understand? Those people who has time this evening, please come to the City Hall teaching at 7. Today we're going to hear any questions?